what we say, you don't want your finances just running you. You don't have to accept how you're spending or how you're saving. Like, do you want to just do it in a mindful way so that you feel like you're in control of your choices?
Think you can't build wealth because your financial life is messy, late, or just not enough? Well, get ready to break your brain because today's guests have lived every chapter of that story. Welcome to Living Out So Fabulously, where we talk about real, imperfect money journeys and the strategies that help modern families build wealth, purpose, and freedom. From convertibles in their 20s to skipping retirement in their 30s, the duo behind Out and Around and Modern Family Finance, Jenny and Lisa Dazols, are here to spill their money stories. Welcome to the show, Jenny and Lisa.
Thanks for having us.
So you own and manage your own advisory firm. For early retirees or financial independence seekers, what are three pivotal financial strategies you recommend based on the work that your firm does, Modern Family Finance?
So, we work primarily with modern families of all shapes and sizes, kind of in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So they're typically earning good incomes at the height of their earning potential. But what we say is like the number one principle, it doesn't matter whether you're earning $1 million or 100,000 or less, is it's all about cash flow. So how much are you bringing in and where is it going out? And so that's, I would say, strategy number one is just knowing where your money goes.
And most people know how much they're bringing in. They can tell you how much your salary is. And most people do not know how much is going out.
And the ratio we love to focus on is, you can call it many things. We call it the financial independence ratio, but it's essentially how much liquid net worth you have. So that means all of your money minus your house is over, that's the numerator. And the denominator is what your annual expenses are. And that just tells you how many years that your money could cover you. And so that's often a aha moment for folks because they might be earning lots of money, but they haven't actually built that much wealth. Or the opposite. They actually don't have that much money and feel poor because of their income, but actually they have a lot of assets. So that's one principle. I think the second principle that we work with clients is actually around tax planning. So we always say taxes are, if you're thinking about, again, we're working typically with high earners in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Taxes are your biggest expense over your lifetime for most people. And so many people are like, well, it is what it is. And that's true. And we're not trying to avoid taxes. Taxes are important. But our goal is to help folks reduce their lifetime tax burden and to be able to realize those taxes at the lowest rate. And I guess, yeah.
Well, I think the third would be your saving ratio. So that's also, I think, as people have been told different stories throughout their lifetime. Same 10%, but for some people, they might not understand the trade-offs of like if you save a higher percentage of your income, maybe what's the trade-off in terms of you had mentioned like an earlier financial independence point, and so. Just educating people what their savings ratio is also probably another aha moment. And people can kind of then figure out if the trade-off is worth it for them to try to save more to accelerate their independence earlier.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. I'm curious, just with the work that you do you find that clients tend to be good at one of those and like miserable at the rest? Like nobody's like really good at the entire trifecta. Like I'm great at cash flow, but I'm miserable at saving and investing it. Or I'm great at saving and investing. I just can't make the money.
Yeah, I think investing is, we didn't talk about investing yet, but investing is a very important part. But I find that people tend to get over focused on which fund and which security and which whatever, and under focus on the primary question of is how much should you be leaving in cash versus investments. And so I think it's like, okay, well, I have this investment portfolio and I'm really focused on optimizing that. But by the way, I also have like all this chunk sitting in cash that I'm not putting to work or I'm failing to use all the tools that I have to reduce my taxes, right? So it's kind of like, I feel like people tend to overfocus on one of those things and not necessarily look at it all. So Yeah, so I mean, we try to help bring all that together.
Yeah.
It could be a lot for any one person to manage all the finances of a household. So whether or not, you might be good at it, but we all need kind of at least a friend or a spouse or someone to kind of second guess our numbers, run some checks, just make, I think, more mindful decisions. Of also what we say, you don't want your finances just running you. You don't have to accept how you're spending or how you're saving. Like, you want to just do it in a mindful way so that you feel like you're in control of your choices.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely agree with that. It's nobody likes to feel like their budget is a monkey on their back, right? Or their financial goals are monkeys on their back. So, folks, if you're just tuning in, this is Living Not So Fabulously, where we mix real money wisdom with a whole lot of community. Today's guests, Jenny and Lisa Dazols, are champions of LGBTQ financial wellness. They are also the creators of Out and Around. So I want to get a little personal here. We're going to talk about your personal stories that we mentioned at the very beginning. Jenny, you admitted to making a very common mistake that people in their 20s do. You bought a sexy car. You mind sharing a little bit about that with us?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I grew up in an Asian American household, and so I think money was treated both as like a source of scarcity, like you had to try to accumulate as much as you possibly could to secure yourself, and it was also treated as a status symbol. So it was always, when I got my first job and got my real first paycheck, I was like, "Oh, I want to get a fancy car." So yeah, I bought I bought a little BMW the convertible. It was white, and I think Lisa, who is a social worker, we were already dating at the time. She was pretty appalled to be seen driving it because it did not fit her image of who she was. But I mean, in hindsight, I'm glad I made that, I guess, if you will, a mistake in a sense that it got out of my system. I really quickly realized I'm like, this is nothing for me. And basically, our cars have progressively gotten worse over time, meaning like less sexy over time. So, it just doesn't, it didn't matter, to me as much. So yeah.
I mean, that's not a judgment. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's not a judgment.
I like car people.
Yes.
So it was a fun purchase,
Yes.
but it was a burden to take care of. It was ongoing expenses. I mean, there are lots of things that we enjoy spending our money on, that other people might think are extravagant. Like, we travel quite a bit. Like, that's kind of where we put our money. Where other people are like, they don't want to travel, they want to stay at home, and they love their cars. So it's just about trying to figure out, again, mindfully, is this going to bring me lasting joy? Yeah.
Joan and I have jokingly said this to some of our friends that we eat the 80-20 rule. 80% of our food is pretty boring, so that we can once in a while go out for a fabulous meal. So, Lisa, I'm going to turn the attention to you. You have shared that you kind of didn't fund your retirement, at least not until you were in your 30s. And I'm just curious, that's a very common thing for folks today. Do you want to share some of the experience of why that happened? Maybe what was going on and how do you feel about it in hindsight?
Yeah. I mean, I went right out of college and I volunteered for 2.5 years as a social worker in South America. I think I earned $50 a month. I did a program kind of similar to the Peace Corps. So it just wasn't like, I think Jenny and I were quite opposites, where Jenny's like, how can I super fund my 401k? And to be honest, I actually grew up in a pretty middle class, like a very middle class family. I was like a scholarship kid, but I always had the basics. And my parents were a teacher and an IRS worker. They had pensions. So that's really what I knew and went into. Um, so, I mean, I just think, a huge part of it is just education. I think I was like a sensible, responsible person. It's just not what my friends were talking about. It was not a topic of importance in our 20s or our 30s. We were saving the world. We were not caring about salaries. Um, I just wasn't making the conscious decision, to not save. I was just trying to make it. And so I think there would have been some things I don't think I would have regretted, becoming a social worker, but I might have just, thought, I need a few more years to like live with my family to kind of like build some savings, or there are certain decisions. Like I did buy a car, like but maybe I could have bought a Vespa. I don't know. There's certain decisions that like I could have simplified and made some trade-offs so that even though I had a lower income, I could have at least hit some better markers in terms of like what could have gotten me started earlier. Because as we all know, the earlier you start, the better your future goes. I mean, that's not to say that you can't, you know, that's for everything, right? It's for health, exercise. It's overwhelming, but start wherever you can. Start today. But yeah, sure. I think education would have been a key for me.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We're going to hold that thought for a second here. We'll be right back after a quick break, folks. So welcome back to Living Not So Fabulously, but we're back talking with Jenny and Lisa Dazols, the power duo behind modern family finance and the film Out and Around. So you mentioned earlier, Lisa, this love of travel. And so I think that has taken you on quite a journey. You travel specifically to 15 countries to create a documentary called Out and Around, where you say that you met the super gays who are doing extraordinary things around the world. And you did a TED talk about your experience that has had over 1 million views. What was the most surprising discovery that you made during this experience of actually traveling to these countries and meeting and interacting with these super gays?
Yeah, I mean, so we traveled to Asia, Africa, and South America. We were really looking to developing countries to interview people of color. And I think the surprising thing was like how similar we were. Like, well, it felt like we were visiting almost extended family. We had a lot of similar experiences as gay people, as queer people. And then the other thing that was just surprising was like just how they were beating the odds, and how courageous they were. In a lot of places that had a lot fewer privileges than we had in the States. So that was just super inspiring. And we were meeting people, we were trying to connect them as well. And it just felt like a very strong tie.
Mm. Yeah, I have I've shared this before. Growing up in a religion that was very um, uh, non-traditional from the rest of the world. You were in a very closed community. It felt kind of similar that I would go to places in California and I would walk into the church and the people there would automatically accept me. And after I left that religion and I was involved in the queer community, I felt very much the same, that it seemed like I can go anywhere and I'm going to meet other queer people and they're going to just be the same, which is kind of nice. One other question for you about this particular experience. You mentioned that going to countries where people have a lot less privileges. Oftentimes, I'm going to assume that they have a lot less financial privileges. Did that inform or reframe any of your thinking, maybe around what is enough?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's that Harvard study that talks about happiness in what creates happiness in your life, and the answer is relationships. Like, when they take out socioeconomic status and look at people, you know 50 years of research. So yeah, I mean, I think there are, as we become more and more isolated in the States, there are other, countries where, people are not working from home on their personal computers, like doing these like, white collar jobs, like, and there's a lot of community in different areas that, because they need each other, right? And so we live very simply for that year. We've lived very simply in different times in our lives, and you know, our happiness level hasn't changed drastically based on where we live and what we have. So we're always asking ourselves, because we want to live a sustainable life too. We don't want to be, you know, working ourselves to death either, or sacrificing our health for wealth. So it's a really important thing to know when is enough enough.
Yeah. I think that is a really important question. I think too few of us ask that question. Is this enough? Or when is it enough?
In light of what we see going on in the world, especially here in the US, of this shift towards the right, do you think that your documentary would be different today if you made it?
I mean, yeah, you have to think for sure. Like, as we had, I mean, first of all, we had so much corporate support from Jenny's former employer. Like, that was like the age of, you know,
DEI everything.
yeah, like, we've seen from some financial support to make the film from the employer LGBT group. Um, so just, I mean, that's like, a golden age of DEI. They supported Jenny with the year to make the film and take a sabbatical from her work. It's kind of hard to imagine today, though I would hope, no one has gone away. We're still working. We're still there and, a little bit quieter than before. Um, so yeah, I think it would be different.
I think DEI now kind of has this connotation like that it has little to no value, or at least little to no value to the masses. So I'm curious, um, what value do you think your documentary provided to the masses, to not only to the LGBTQ plus community, but to society as a whole, that um, would not necessarily not just help, our GDP or the corporate bottom line, but would actually make people just better citizens and workers?
I mean, as in making this film, we've had a chance to show in a lot of places, like in kind of corporate settings and as well as school settings and youth settings and whatnot. And I think one of the things that stood out to me most, it was actually my own workplace. We screened part of the film, and in our film, we traveled to South Asia, and I worked at a tech company. There are a lot of South Asian engineers and whatnot, just employees there, and it was, and anyways, one of my colleagues, I didn't know her personally, but she worked at the company. She came out to me afterwards. She was, middle-aged South Asian woman, and she was just like, and she obviously was like not someone born in the US. She was somebody who had moved here, most likely for work. And she said that this really changed her mind about her kids. She said that she had only gotten comfortable with the idea of her kids potentially marrying a non-South Asian. And and now she's like, "Oh, now I'm like, would I be okay if my kid, um, you know, was, gay or anything else?" Right? And so she was very, I think that was probably one of like, "Oh, this was worth it" moments. And I think, she was the kind of person never would have walked into an LGBT film festival to watch this thing. It was just that she was forced to sit through it because it was at a women's whatever group at work, right? And so I think, you can keep preaching to the choir, or you can, like, I guess this film allowed us to kind of be a little bit outside of that too. So that was really cool. And I think that's what DEI does, because it's in the workplace. So kind of there are people who you kind of have potentially more reach in a different way.
Yeah. You actually said the phrase, and I'm going to quote, I think it's a Salt and Pepper song, free your mind. No, I'm sorry.
It's
It is
in vogue, I think.
in Vogue. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come on, free your
But
mind, and
right,
the
free
rest
your
will
mind and the
follow.
rest will follow. And I think that that's something that a lot of people in America and around the world are working on right now, is how do I free my mind from the cultural norms that have trapped us in this? We have to live our lives a certain way. We have to make a certain amount of money. You can only do these kinds of things in your life. And I think that is giving people the freedom to choose passion projects, to choose to become an entrepreneur because they always wanted to do something for themselves, or to choose to say, I don't want to work 40 to 50 hours a week. I'd rather figure out a way, how can I work 25 or 30 hours a week and spend that extra time with my kids? But I think that kind of really, to me, sums up what you guys have shared with us today, is this whole idea of freeing your mind, freeing yourself from these grips of society to say, I can go out and pursue what I want to pursue.
Yeah, traveling abroad, and I mean, people of different cultures will really do that to you because they can, we lived in Taiwan, that had, universal healthcare. And everyone had universal healthcare. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about your job. We lived in Switzerland for 3 years. super common to work part-time. Doctors
Yeah.
work part-time. They want their summer vacations, like, so, and then when we traveled abroad, like, there's just different ways of living. And so, I mean, not all of us can just travel abroad, but there are certainly lots of documentaries on different lifestyles and ways that you can kind of, learn. You don't have to come up with the solution. There are lots of other people.
Well, I figured out.
Yes, who have figured out different ways. But it does take a lot of courage to think outside the box.
So one of my favorite parts and things that we should all take part in is when Lisa talked about mentorship. Whether you're a mentor or a mentee, you both end up learning something, especially when we're talking about money.
Yeah, and many of us forget about the power of our mindset and how our money works and how we use our money. That's why we like to recommend Morgan Housel's book, The Psychology of Money, because it helps us understand how to reframe our mindset as well as understand who we truly are and our mindset's ability for us to succeed.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have questions or guest suggestions, just email us at yfpodcasts@yahooinc.com. If you like what you see, scan the QR code to follow Yahoo Finance podcasts and more for more videos and expert insights.
And if you're looking for advice for your future money, head over to Decoding Retirement on Yahoo Finance. And until next time,
Stay fabulous.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.